Welcome to the Intercut Podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, sweet birthday baby, it's Arturo Zurita.
Alina keeps forgetting that that's actually one of the quotes from Russian Doll. So I was saying it the other day. I kept going, sweet birthday baby. She's like, what are you talking about? I was like, you don't remember that's like... the literal line that gets repeated. It's the one line that gets repeated over and over again.
Yeah, and it's going over and over again in my head, I feel like.
Yeah, there's a compilation of it on YouTube, or I think it was on Twitter, where it was just all the different inflections that she goes on sweet birthday baby. Sometimes the sweet's a little higher and stuff like that. But no, I'm over here. South by Southwest hasn't started yet. But we got, as you can see over there in the back of Mr. Sundance himself, he's got some stuff there. The South by one's in blue, so that's pretty interesting. We're at the beginning of the fest, hasn't fully started yet, but I have learned my lesson right away, and that is, don't mess with Texas. we had this crazy theory about, because this is my second time in Texas within the past year or so. And the last time we went, I kept noticing, don't mess with Texas signs.
Yeah, which, the slogan.
Right, exactly. But signs cost money, so it started me thinking, was there a city council? And the city council decided, it was like either we invest in this health concern over here, in more security, or don't mess with Texas signs. And they decided an overwhelmingly vote to spend, I don't know how much money on these don't mess with Texas signs. And then I started thinking, there's not that many incidents in Texas. Is there too many incidents in Texas? Does Texas make the news that much?
It's certainly not a Florida or an Arizona.
It's not a Florida, right? I started thinking...
And it's pretty big.
Right, we had to Google it. We're like, what was the last big incident in Texas? At Tombstone, 1808. That was the last time a shootout happened. And so then we started combining it together, and we realized there's probably a person who came to Texas, was going to do some, unspeakable tragedy. And right when he was about to do it, right?
Yeah.
So he read it. I gotta get out of here. It was the don't mess with Texas signs.
I'm gonna take this to Oklahoma.
That's what. He's like, I gotta go somewhere else. And then he went that way. But dude, don't mess with Texas signs everywhere. I don't even think Texas realizes it. But bro, when you read those signs and you see them everywhere, they're all over the place. But no, South by Southwest is exciting. I'm excited to be in Portland, Texas. It's a very fun little city here. So we'll see how the festival goes.
Dope. So in a little bit, we're going to talk about Spielberg's beef with Netflix, the Star is Born extended cut, and Live, Die, Repeat again. But first, make sure you're subscribed to the Intercut Podcast, either the video podcast on youtube.com/intercutpod or the audio podcast available on most podcatchers. Also, follow Intercut on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We are at IntercutPod. That's at Intercut POD, that's short for podcast. Art, let's start the show the way we start every week here on Intercut with what we're watching. What you been watching, buddy?
Continued a little bit more of True Detective, a couple of other shows. Big Little Lies, which was really good. But I got a movie and a show that I wanted to talk about. Yeah. I don't know if you were able to catch the Sundance film, Fighting with My Family.
The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind? No, okay.
Nobody caught the... Yeah, in the group chat, what did we say? We were like, did y'all know the Boy Who Harnessed the Wind? Out? The one Sundance movie that got an award before Sundance even started? Yeah, that one. So that one's out. I always laugh at Alina's... It wasn't even her joke. She left the screening, because she did catch it. She said it was okay. When the Boy Who Harnessed Wind, she leaves the screening, obviously being a boy who harnesses wind, and one of the ladies goes, "Oppress!" Shout out to her. I had no idea that kid invented windmills.
Yeah, I remember that comment from Sundance. Not the most intelligent observation.
Waterworld, I didn't know Kevin Costner invented H2O.
Fighting with My Family, I didn't know they invented wrestling. Tell me about it, though.
Dude, fantastic movie. True life story, I don't know that much of it. I barely went to my first Raw match, I think we went to, when Angel, my brother, got tickets because he works for Allstate. We went to it. Crazy experience when you actually see it live, right? You hear
Yeah.
the dunks that they add. You see the way that they're hitting each other. And one of the big things that this movie pushes, and you see it when you see it live, and I'm sure when you grow up with it. Because I grew up in the Rock era, the Rakishi era, the Booker T era. That was my era before I obviously moved into movies. But, like, seeing it now, that idea that it's, well, I think the line was, it's fixed, not fake, is one of the biggest things that they push.
Right.
And the movie's good. There are points in the movie where it shouldn't be. I was surprised it was great. Specifically with the relationship that you see in the trailer with the brother and the sister, with it being a true story and the fact that like they just straight up tell him, you just don't have it. Well, what do I have to do? No, like, you will never have it.
Right.
And the sister having to go through it all and seeing all the pressure that's on her family because it really is a family thing. Like, these guys have their own thing in the UK that I think is kind of shown in the trailer, but in the movie, like, they have their own setup.
Right.
Like, if movies were not distributed over there, then they were making their own blockbuster and selling it for the public. No, there were scenes in it that really hit me. I thought it was pretty good. The Rock is in it probably a little bit more than he should be, but whatever else. I do recommend it. I'm not sure if it's a 91%, but I really did enjoy it. I thought the performance
Are you upset
was
you
great.
missed it at Sundance?
Absolutely not. The other thing that I did see, we finished, was High Maintenance.
Oh, dope. This is something that I've been watching too. Are you up to date?
I'm up to date. Hit it off. I think I'm up to date. I might have knocked out.
Yeah, I mean, High Maintenance has been one of my favorite shows on TV since before it was on TV, since it was just a Vimeo show. I think it's got a really great just structure to it in the way that it's able to weave in and out of these different people's lives and give you a bunch of different slices
so cool.
of different characters while still maintaining this sort of common theme and you know returning to the guy who I think as the shows continued along they found ways to make the guy more and more interesting too. Particularly, you know, you're seeing in the most recent seasons where you learn a little bit more about his life, the people who are in his life, and his relationships with people. I think, you know, there's some of the stuff they did last season when he kind of realizes all of his relationships are based around being the weed guy for people. That it's kind of sad and tragic in a way.
Yeah.
But still hilarious. I should mention that. I do find it to be one of the funniest shows on TV, just in its acute observations. It's one of those shows that I think a lot of people try to lampoon hipsterdom and new like trends and stuff like that. And High Maintenance does a really good job of kind of just depicting it for what it is, whether or not it's ridiculous.
The layers of hipsterness? Exactly.
Like, you know, they'll go to like a yoga class at like, what is it? Namaste in Bed-Stuy and shit like that. They will show kind of these weird Brooklynites, but not necessarily just making fun of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of presenting it as ridiculous.
Yeah, they know. It's like, we know these guys are here who do these really weird things. Girl's mom who goes to the bar more than she does, and her friends is staying over at her house for some random reason. There's people at an Airbnb with a snake for some random reason.
Great episode.
Yeah, different things that happen, but at the core of it, you would say it's pitched as a comedy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely pitch themselves as a comedy, although it's not laugh out loud the way that most things pitched as a comedy are.
Yeah, I think it's how you say. Like you were saying, you were explaining the drama parts because that's what keeps you, surprisingly.
Yes.
But I went into it thinking it was a comedy, having no idea that, we're just going to ignore the weed guy for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's really interesting about it is that the main character of the show will sometimes not really
be the main character.
Yeah. In fact, he's rarely the main character of the episodes.
That's very true.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that keeps me from fully comparing it to, if you like Easy, this is a lot like it, in where you got different storylines from different people coming on, and you're like, this is a brand new person I'm meeting in Season 2, Episode 3, who has not been a recurring character. Okay, that was pretty enjoyable. I'm so glad that I'm never going to see them again until, what are they doing here at the finale of... You know, like, there was one that blew me away, was a random person who he meets, or one of them meets, in a taxi. Who goes, I guess I just blessed myself. Remember that person?
Yeah.
That person is randomly at a lake.
Yeah, he shows up again.
The most beautiful part, this is how I'll put it, and it's the other one I compare it to. Tell me this isn't, if you had watched any seasons of Aziz's show,
Master of None,
How
season
is-
2, episode 6.
How are you not already watching this? This is
Yes.
that episode 6 of Master of None for 3 seasons.
Yeah, and a better version of it, if you ask me. The
Agreed.
way that it's so elegantly able to weave all these people back into the story, you kind of... for me, there's one... the guy who's... the agoraphobic, the guy who's afraid to leave his apartment.
Mhm.
You don't expect him to show back up, and the episode where he shows back up is just so beautiful. I don't know. I think the show does a better job of maybe any show on TV of really giving you a sense of a neighborhood, of a community.
Mhm.
It's not just about this guy and his friends or this bar and people are hanging out.
They trick
it's
you.
really it's Brooklyn. It's
Yeah.
New York. It's people.
When a character shows up, it's not like like How I Met Your Mother. Those are stand-ins when they meet people and they're playing what they need to play for that episode. Here it's like, no, this is the person and this person has their whole life. Like you said, when you see a hipster like made for laughs, you're like, that person doesn't know how to breathe. That person cannot coexist in the real world. These people may seem absurd, like you said, with the yoga stuff and different things, but they actually feel like real people. So when they show up again, the most interesting part to me is the behind the scenes. Like we talked about this with Easy. How the hell do these contracts work? How do you get, like in Game of Thrones, how do you get someone to sign 5 years, but you're only doing episodes?
Right.
1 and 3.
And these aren't people who are complete unknowns either. Dan Stevens shows up in a small part. Hannibal Buress shows up in a small part.
I think it does a great job of showing you, I don't know how much of New York, my man, because he isn't a bike he covers, but showing you how big it is and how small it is. It is in New York, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't that gone. And then the other one is comparing it to Aziz's show in episode 6, but also showing you how, like, I'm losing my thread of talk because I had it in one of the more recent episodes. I don't know. Say something else about the show.
So something that I think is really great about it, one of the main premises of it, one of the main motifs is the weed smoking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like every episode kind of enters or sort of examines a person through their relationship to weed. It's not all stoners. A lot of people aren't even weed smokers. They will just sort of have an encounter with either the guy or a weed smoker that affects their life somehow. But I think, whereas people might want to disregard it as some kind of stoner show, I think it does a really great job of not being that, of kind of just showing how different people have different relationships with the drug, and that being a way to learn more about them.
Yep, dude, that was the thing. So it's you remember we were talking about how like you'll start off with him. You might not even start off with him. It'll be somewhere else. Then he'll come into the picture. Then we just use him to get to the next guy. Then we start following them, and you don't even notice that. What in the world? When did we leave the first family?
Yeah, it's so effortless in the way that it moves through its stories.
Which shows you how great, not just from the screenwriting standpoint, but the direction and all of it, which leads me to the point that I was trying to make, and I forgot it again. Damn it! Let me think about it again. Say something else about this show.
But Ben Sinclair, who plays the guy, I think is really charming, really fun. He just has this warm presence that kind of, helps coalesce the whole show, and just I think he embodies the spirit of the show, which is very like empathetic and warm and inviting. I think a lot of the acting is really good on it. Katya Blickfeld, who co-created the show with Ben Sinclair, was a Emmy-nominated or Emmy-winning casting director on 30 Rock. Yeah, he co-created the show.
So is that joke about, hey, someone made a show about me?
That's him talking about himself.
Damn.
But also the co-creator, Katya Blickfeld, was a casting director, and one of the things she's talked about is how she knew all these amazing actors who just weren't really getting good parts, and they ended up writing parts for them, and you can tell how specific some of these parts are written. Mm-hmm. You see a lot of faces that you don't normally see on TV, a lot of characters who you don't normally see, and I just find it so charming and so full of life in a way that a lot of shows aren't. It really feels like a reflection of life in a way that's not tedious or boring. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's one of my favorite shows. I'm glad that you're caught up with it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. Anything else you've been watching?
Those have been the main two. We were about to start a Game of Thrones rewatch thing, but then we got here for South by. So, what about yourself?
Yeah. I've been wanting to do the Game of Thrones rewatch too. I haven't started that yet. Like I said, I've been watching some High Maintenance. I did a rewatch of Russian Doll just because that show is
Good?
amazing. It's
Even better second time.
You definitely pick up on more of the things, like you mentioned, the things that start disappearing before you even really notice them, and the ways in which, like, maybe there's been reflections of this happening before they noticed. I don't know. I think it's
into them. Yeah.
I think it's a really clever show. I think the ending of the season at first felt a little bit underwhelming, but on the rewatch, catching little bits and maybe hints as to what they mean by that ending.
Can we put a spoiler warning right now? Because I got something that might blow your mind.
All right, so let's throw up a spoiler warning.
Look,
if you haven't seen Russian Doll, click below to head over to Yay or Nay.
I say this for one reason, and again, I'm filling up air here for anybody here, and I know Zach will have edited it in. And in fact, if this doesn't blow his mind, he will cut the whole thing out, and then we'll jump back into another bit in a little bit. But even for those of you who haven't seen it, be this the incentive to see it. Maybe you skipped over, so you're not listening to this. But it's so out there. Even if I say it, you can still watch it and enjoy it. You know the ending to the show, right? Full spoilers here now.
With the parade.
The parade happens. There's 2 versions of each of them. They keep walking. Some weird camera work. Did you pay attention to the camera work?
Yeah, it's a little bit puzzling, but it looks like there's almost 3 of her at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you notice that it's some way, there really does become 3 of her because there's the 2 versions that are coming in, and you see them, and she has a specific jacket.
Split screen to the not split screen.
Because at the beginning of the episode, conveniently the friend dropped juice on her, causing her to change the outfit so we can differentiate between them. One of the Allens gets a little scarf. But did you notice that at the end, when the 2 come together, all of a sudden they've just duplicated the same one? They weren't the differing ones. They were the same ones. And they are walking a certain direction. They're walking into the parade. Both realities that we've been following the whole time, the Nadia we know and the Allen we know, are walking into the parade. But the final Nadia we see is walking out of the parade. So my theory is, who we're seeing at the end, did you notice her face? Both couples are relaxed. They're chilled. They're enjoying it. Just like we see the back of the ones who she ends up passing. But the final Nadia we see is a little too worried, a little too concerned, a little too like she maybe went through something in Season 2. And what we saw at the ending of Season 1 is really the finale to Season 2. And all 3 seasons will end at the same parade. And we don't even realize that from a different camera angle, we also saw the ending to Season 3. We keeping this in or what?
Yeah, I think we're going to keep it in because I don't. I'm assuming you know this, but apparently they have a 3-season outlook for the show. Thing.
Yeah, let's not. Well, that bit that you said right there, we're keeping it in. That'll be the part where the spoilers come back in. Yes, and it goes with the 3-season part. A 4-season, a 5-season, that gimmick don't work. But for 3 seasons, you can see it hitting next year at the finale when people go, "Oh, we're doing this." Then everyone is just so excited to see how they're going to lead up to it again in Season 3.
That could be very interesting.
That's insane.
That could be very interesting.
I'm watching Russian Doll again.
All right, and just one last, what I've been watching quickly. Another thing that I've been rewatching is The Good Place. The Good Place has a podcast now. It's called The Good Place Podcast, easily enough. And there's an episode of the podcast for every episode of the show, interviewing an actor and a writer from the show, breaking down all the thought that went into it, some of the prep, some of the behind-the-scenes stories. It's the podcast is hosted by Mark Evan Jackson, who plays Sean on The Good Place. He plays Holt's husband on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's the very deadpan, authoritarian guy who you've probably seen in some movies and stuff. He's an excellent host for the podcast because he's got that improv background. He's able to keep the pace brisk and fun, but he is a genuine fan of The Good Place. And you can tell from the questions he asks, he really does kind of shed some light on the process of the show. So if you, like me, think The Good Place is one of the best comedies on TV right now, if you're fascinated by the world of Mike Schur and the process that goes into creating the show, I'd highly recommend checking out The Good Place podcast and maybe rewatching The Good Place as you re-listen to the episodes. They talk a lot about the different things they teased and little details that you might not notice, and it gave me an even greater appreciation for the show.
They're taking our jobs, man.
Yeah, I know. It's a little unfair to be the best Good
That's what I'm
Place
thinking about.
analysis.
I was like, all right, so this is just the Talking Good Place. Okay, it's the Talking Dead.
Yeah.
All right, that's
Yeah.
dope. And then I started thinking, does Game of Thrones or something like this? They kind of do at the ending. Wait, should
Yeah,
they
The
be
Ringer's got one.
Yeah, should they
that
be doing
has,
something like this?
Talk the Thrones.
Yeah, A24. It's got their podcast now too with filmmakers. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, I guess they just don't want us anymore. I guess.
Yeah, no room for the rest of us.
All right, you got to intercut it out. I guess. All right. Sheesh.
So let us know what you've been watching in the comments below on YouTube or by shooting us an email. The address for that is intercutpod@gmail.com. We move on to the yay or nay, where we break down the latest happenings in the entertainment industry, starting with, during interviews for his upcoming role in Triple Frontier, Oscar Isaac threw his hat into the ring for a potential Solid Snake movie, saying,
Ooh.
quote, Metal Gear Solid, that's the one. I'm throwing my hat in for that one. Director Jordan Vogt Roberts responded on Twitter saying the ball's in Oscar's court, meaning that there's some mutual interest from both the potential star and the director of the upcoming Metal Gear Solid adaptation. So, Art, yay or nay, you'd be excited for a Metal Gear Solid movie starring Oscar Isaac?
Jordan Vogt Roberts is solidified to be doing it, right?
I believe so, yes.
The same way Uncharted movies have been ready to be made, or he's making them.
Yeah, I mean, he's on Twitter talking about doing it, so that makes me feel like that.
He's on Twitter talking about a lot of things too, Jordan Vogt Roberts.
Yeah,
right?
He's never been Twitter shy.
Yeah, maybe a little too many things, but no, yeah, I'd be 100% down for it. I don't know Metal Gear Solid that much. Our boy Ryan, shout out to him, big fan, kept putting me onto the games and stuff like that. Obviously, I'm just a slow gamer. He told me about when 5 came out, and I'm playing it, and I message him. I go, yo, so I've been staking out here for 2 hours. Can I just shoot up the place? And he goes, no, man, isn't it great? It's like you're really there. I was like, yeah, but I don't really want to be there. It's technical to a degree where it's just we will scope out here.
I've always found Metal Gear Solid games to be
cool,
a bit frustrating to play just because I'm not that good at stealth.
Right, and it's so realistic, which is incredible. That's great, but I'm used to
totally. Yeah.
But
the stories are apparently fantastic. The writing is one of the things that the series has long been lauded for.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't necessarily mean that will translate into a movie version, but at least there's potential there. And I think we are also we've gone a little while without having a new prominent spy franchise. I think we need a new Bourne or something in our lives. So
you think it could replace that?
I mean, potentially. It's kind of known but not well-known thing about Oscar Isaac is that Tony Gilroy was looking at him for the Bourne Legacy and was kind of convinced into casting Jeremy Renner instead of Oscar Isaac. So this could be that spy franchise that Oscar Isaac has been looking for. I don't know. He's a charming guy. I always like him when he's in movies. So
yes,
I'm in for it.
I can't wait to see him. Just 5 hours. All right, moving.
Will Smith played Deadshot in the 2016 anti-hero film Suicide Squad, but as director James Gunn readies the sequel for production, he'll be doing so without its most famous cast member. Will Smith has dropped out of the sequel due to scheduling conflicts as he balances his upcoming roles in Aladdin, Ang Lee's Gemini Man, Bad Boys 3, and the recently announced biopic for Serena and Venus Williams' father. Art. Yay or nay, Will Smith not returning is a big loss for the Suicide Squad.
No.
Nah? I mean, I wrote this before we got today's news, which is he'll be replaced by Idris Elba, which kind of makes me think the loss is even less than initially feared.
I didn't even know Will Smith dropped out. Can we start with... Well, one, I think it's great. It's great. Do you think Will Smith dropped out for any other reasons other than scheduling? Because Will Smith still got time for a YouTube channel.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance that he maybe is done with the franchise. He's never really seemed like a big franchise guy.
He never was. Remember, he said no to Django.
Yeah.
Remember why he said no to Django?
Because he's not the star of
So
Django.
did he read script number 2 and he went, huh?
Yeah, maybe he's just not excited about not taking a huge part in the next film,
So
something like that.
So what I'm getting at is the last time Will Smith said he didn't want to do something, he went for After Earth instead. the movie he skipped on was pretty good.
Yeah.
So if this ends up being, can you imagine the improvement? First of all, yeah, I'm excited for James Gunn, his next directorial debut. I am excited for the fact that he's helming the script, partly, if even so. And I'm sorry, Idris Elba. Someone had mentioned on Twitter about he kind of already played that in the Dark Tower, but obviously no one saw that. I completely forgot that was even a movie. I had to check it. I was like, oh snap, he did with the gun. He was a shooter. Yep. So to see him here, whoa, that would be great. I guess that means he is permanently dead. Which
from
Infinity War,
his time in
Infinity
the
War.
MCU.
Yeah, Infinity War's been out enough. So if you're like, I haven't seen it, no.
Yeah.
So I guess that means he's officially done, and I really liked him there too. But he was always going to be a side character there.
I believe he has talked about wanting a more prominent role in a superhero franchise in the past. So this would be that. So that's great for him. There's also news today that Joel Kinnaman won't be back for the next Suicide Squad.
No.
Yeah. So overall, I'm saying that's a net positive getting Idris Elba in and losing Will Smith and Joel Kinnaman.
What's Joel Kinnaman got?
He's also scheduling conflicts.
RoboCop.
Got a bar mitzvah to go to or something.
Sure.
A Star is Born is back in theaters with an extended cut featuring 12 new minutes of footage, Art, including a song cut from the original film's release. Warner Brothers put the film back out to over 1,000 theaters across North America. But yay or nay, you're in favor of extended cuts getting a theatrical run.
That is an interesting question. When you had said that, I didn't think it was theatrical.
Yeah.
I would.
So
go ahead.
They've got a few extended scenes. Apparently, the shallow scene in the parking lot is extended, so you actually see them talking about the chorus of the song. I know some people nitpicked. How do they know to both sing "sha-la-la-lo" at the same time? They talked about it in the parking lot. Cut. Yeah.
I just assumed.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Things that don't happen on screen don't exist.
I mean, it looked like they practiced. So.
Right.
But yeah. You go first on this one.
I mean, I'm generally in favor of it. I think that's something that I'd like to see movie theaters do more of is specialized screenings. So whether that's director's cuts of cult classics or, an extended run of A Star is Born, it's exciting to see something that you love on the big screen. I'm almost more, nowadays, I'm almost more compelled to go see a movie that I know I like rather than something I don't know I like on the big screen, just because it can be a fun experience to go and see something that you love in that mold. All the movies that I have caught up on DVD, now if I get a chance, I'll see them on a big screen. And if this is a thing that probably would have only been available at home video before, and if you're a big Star is Born fan, you get to see it in the theater.
I'm thinking of every other one. Batman v Superman, extended cut back at home. A bunch of the other ones, extended cuts. Some extended cuts don't even see the light of day. We were just talking about Django, the 5-hour cut. We're not going to see that. A bunch of other movies that have had that as well. It's interesting. Do you believe it's because DVDs are just not up to the quality that cinema has, as we will soon be talking about, and thus those deleted scenes are made for TV unless they get released in the theater?
Right. I mean, it's... I wonder
weird.
How much of it...
If you're going to bring it back in theaters, that is cool, what you said. That people are going to go back who didn't get a chance to watch it with a little extra. People who have watched it, also with a little extra to see. So I'm not opposed to it.
And I wonder how much of it is also that, like, the market for DVDs, where, like, you market, like, oh, this is the extended version, is probably less than it was maybe 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. You're not selling out lots of extended cut Blu-rays or something.
I guess, probably. Yeah, it's cool. It's interesting.
I think it's cool.
Yeah.
Edge of Tomorrow wasn't a huge hit when it first came out, but the movie was well-liked by critics and gained some steam on home video, enough interest that Warner Brothers is now looking to make a sequel, bringing back Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt to live, die, and repeat all over again. The Invention of Lying and Monster Truck screenwriter will be handling script duties, but director Doug Liman is expected to return. Art, yay or nay, you're ready to return to the Edge of Tomorrow? Full yes?
Yeah. That's really all I have, yeah. It's going to be interesting. Russian Doll. Happy Death
Yeah, I
Day.
mean, this I guess that's in the culture right now, that whole like reliving a day thing.
We had werewolves.
I'm
We
a
got this.
little bit skeptical of it in this context, just because we haven't had a lot of returning to ideas where you relive the same day again and again. I guess maybe Happy Death
Happy
Day.
Death
I
Day
didn't see
to
that
you.
one.
Yeah.
But there's so much charm in that movie. It had such a good, perfect little ending. I don't know.
If there was ever a type of movie that should just be left, it might be these.
Yeah. I got my mission. I got my Mission Impossible Tom Cruise. I don't need my Edge of Tomorrow Tom Cruise too, I guess.
We'll see. I mean, we're
We'll
always
see.
up to see what they got, but I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah. So that does it for yay or nay. Let us know if there's any topics you'd like us to hit on future shows by leaving us a comment or shooting us an email. We're going to hit a couple quick interview questions before we get to our topic of the week. First interview question comes from an email from Kevin, who wrote in to ask, he's wondering how we balance reviewing a movie on its merits versus reviewing it reviewing it based on the technical stuff, or whether or not we like it. So I think one of the things that Kevin's sort of trying to talk about here is whether or not we're able to turn off the part of our brain that just enjoys a thing.
Fan and critic,
yeah, fan and critic sides of things. How do you approach that balance?
I know it was interesting in like our early days. So we had this conversation at Sundance as well. How we've known so many like smaller reviewers and stuff, or people who like we've come up with. And I remember one of the dudes who I used to talk to. He had a specific rating for that, his fan rating, and then his critic rating, and he would tell you why he did the different ones. I think the most recent example I could give, and I'm sure there's a bunch of them, but Hellfest. I think. Like especially in the Let Me Explains, I'll like talk about like the production design and that's what carries this movie.
Yeah,
this girl's acting is trash. Like I can say, here's where I think the difficult part is, and I think you will agree with me. I think most critics, for the most part, you can tell right off the bat, and I feel as someone who wrote in, emailed us. I didn't even know we had an email, but someone who emailed us in, I'm sure they know we're balancing it to a degree that I guess is accessible and kind of balances it out. But I think where it comes in is, and we have this conversation all the time, where we give out a balanced review, but like a clean wall with one speck, you're only going to notice the speck. And we get this all the time. Man, you just hate on everything. Sure, if you ignore the last 5 reviews, or the last 5 videos where I praise things, then I guess you know what I mean? People are going to build their own narrative. So that's like my creator perspective of a person who makes content, is that I can make it as balanced as possible, but someone's going to... like Alita. I talk about how Alita, I think, is like... I didn't feel the money they put into it. You could see it kind of on screen, but it wasn't fully there. And it's an okay story. Why did you hate it?
I think one of the things that ends up being an obstacle, and this is something that we've talked about, is that being in the position of a critic, we are exposed to a lot more. We are forced to see a lot more than the average movie fan. So something that might be fun for the average movie fan isn't fun for us, because maybe we've seen something like it for the 10th time. Maybe we have seen 10 movies that day. That's a lot. But I think ultimately, like, you have to keep in mind that the people who are reading or listening to you talk about a thing aren't necessarily the same people who go and see all these movies. You have to be able to speak to all audiences. Yeah. So I think you got to recognize when a movie is just working in an entertainment way, and when it's doing something impressive. And I give points both for entertainment and for technical for technical accomplishment. Sometimes a movie is all one and not the other, but I think, like you said, it's finding that balance and trying to not steer people into something without letting them know what they're getting into. I've talked about movies that I've loved on this show that I don't think are for most audiences. I said I've talked about movies that I liked and I don't recommend to the audience of this podcast, because not everything is accessible or terribly entertaining. But depending on what your interest is in, you might find some interest in different
Yeah,
pieces of film.
I think a lot of it comes down to phrasing too. I think like personally we can enjoy something, but it's just how we say it. Because I know like a lot of people. We got this question recently as well. I think it was in one of the comments about how why does art think certain things are trash? And when I say trash, I know that that's a phrase that really makes it sound like I actually hate something. But it's
Yeah.
just like it's like a throwaway phrase, right? And because I
Yeah.
mentioned things in Suspiria that I do like, and then reasons why I don't like it. Which, for the person who did ask that, several videos on it. If you wanted to know, one being Lucas stealing things, but a majority of it comes down to that aspect of it that you were just saying, of Madeline's Madeline. I feel we use terms to really show how we personally didn't love it. So if that's really what you just wanted to know, our personal, like if we were your friends telling you, we gave you that, but we also gave you the perspective where it's like we understand what they were going for, because different filmmakers are going for different things, and that's why we
Right.
say it's like an IPA, right? That's why we say, like, that's why I think we have like a language between the two of us of how to describe things, so you kind of get the gist of it's good here but not here. Is that what you wanted? It's good here but not
Exactly.
here. Is that what you're looking for? Type of thing.
Exactly. Everybody has their own taste, and hopefully, our job we can help illustrate what type of tastes these different films and TV shows are. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not, but hopefully, somebody out there gets the message.
100%.
Cademan writes in asking, he said that he knows we were both let down by season 2 of True Detective, but is it still worth a watch, or should he skip it and start the third season? Art, you're working on the third season right now. How you feeling about that question?
You kind of can. I mean, I would say start it because if you got HBO, you got HBO. Just use it. But True Detective is definitely one of those where you could hop on to season 3 and start doing season 3.
Yeah, I mean, it's an anthology, so luckily you don't really need to watch them in order or whatever. I don't think there's a lot to take from season 2. I think season 1 does the things that season 2 tried to do, but better
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. You know, there's a pretty fun Colin Farrell performance in season 2, so
Yeah,
maybe
I
if you're a
don't
Colin
think
Farrell completist.
some people act like it's a complete waste. I don't think it's a complete waste. Rachel McAdams is in it. I think she does a great job. Colin Farrell does a great job. Who else was in it? Taylor
Taylor
Taylor Kitsch, the greatest actor of all
Kitsch
time. He's in
and
it
Vince
as well.
Vaughn.
Oh, that Vince Vaughn scene.
Yeah. So there's stuff in there that's okay. It's 8 hours of television, so it's not
We got time to
how I
waste.
would spend 8 hours if I knew going into it, but I definitely think there's worse stuff out there. I'd say start with season 3. If you're really enjoying season 1 and season 3, then you can continue with season 2.
Word.
So make sure to leave us a question in the YouTube comments or by emailing us at intercutpod@gmail.com to get a feature on the next show. You can also reach out to us on Twitter, on Facebook, or on Instagram. Again, the handle is at intercutpod on all three, intercutpod, short for podcast. Be an intercutie, send us your movie, TV, and entertainment questions. It's time to get into topic of the week, and this week's topic is Spielberg versus Netflix, the topic that has lit film Twitter on fire with all the takes, all the takedowns. A lot of people upset because apparently Steven Spielberg has called for a meeting with the Academy's body of governors in order to address what people are kind of referring to colloquially as the Netflix problem. The idea that Netflix is not playing by the same rules as the rest of the film studios and is potentially putting themselves giving themselves an unfair advantage for the Oscars. Or whether or not it's an unfair advantage, maybe it's a matter of changing the norms, but Steven Spielberg was quoted on the issue back in March of 2018 saying, "I don't believe that films are just given token qualifications in a couple of theaters for less than a week or should qualify for the Academy Award nominations. Fewer filmmakers are going to struggle to raise money or to compete at Sundance and possibly get one of the specialty labels to release their films theatrically, and more of them are going to let the streaming video on-demand businesses finance their films. So maybe with a promise of a slight one-week theatrical window to qualify for awards. But in fact, once you commit to a television format, you're a TV movie." Shots fired at Roma and all the other Netflix films. Netflix, for their part, responded on Twitter saying that while we love cinema, here are some things we also love. access for people who can't always afford or live in towns without theaters, letting everyone everywhere enjoy releases at the same time, giving filmmakers more ways to share art. These things are not mutually exclusive, so the battle lines have been drawn.
Netflix is going to fix Flint's water problem.
Well, that's kind of been one of the funny things to emerge from this, at least in my opinion, is this championing of Netflix as like the savior. Like, Netflix isn't going to save you. It's a billion-dollar corporation like the rest of these studios. Mm-hmm. Yet it does seem to be the voice of the people right now.
The underdog.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So Art, where are you at in this whole Spielberg versus Netflix debate? Well, do you see Spielberg's points? Are you all team Netflix? Are you somewhere in between? What are you thinking?
We got a couple of things. This conversation is going to go one of two ways. Either we can both side with Spielberg first to get all that out of the way and then really get into it, or my co-host here may feel oppositely, and we're going to have to argue each other, which is going to be really weird because I just got told to shut up and I can't get too loud about this. So which are we doing? I don't know what side you're on, man.
I mean, I think that we should start with the just getting Spielberg's points out of the way.
You still haven't answered my question, but okay, let's talk about Spielberg's points out of the ways. In my opinion, what Spielberg is saying is that he's worried that people are just going to go the Netflix route and just go to streaming. And let's be completely honest. We can say we all love Roma. We all know what happened with Beast with No Nation, man. We all saw what happened with Mudbound. Like, these things do get lost. And he's kind of telling you, he's like, yeah, it kind of sucks to play it I don't think Spielberg is against everything Netflix said it would.
Right.
Right? I don't think you do, Ida?
No, I don't think he is anti-Netflix or Amazon or any of these streaming services as entities.
Right.
Just he's trying to define what a movie is and make the theatrical experience part of that definition.
I think the prior line that you said there, what a movie is, I think is where it gets tricky. Your award stuff I can get. He started trying to define like what a movie was. That's where it was just like really...
Well, yeah, one thing is he said that he thinks these movies should qualify for Emmys, not Oscars.
Okay, well, we'll get into that. But what he's saying is that fact of a movie needs to play in the theaters really just to keep theaters alive, right? I'm sure this is a man raised on radio. This is a man raised on television. This is a man who lived movies. And now he's seeing the change that's happening. And I think it's scary. It's worrisome. I know for one... I see a lot of people who may not go to the movies. They wait. As someone who runs a channel, I get asked every single time I cover a movie, is this on Netflix? I'm like, no, this is Captain Marvel. It's in theaters. Why would you... Like, I literally get asked those questions. People just want to stay at home, and I think it has created a culture of it. Netflix and chill is an actual phrase that I'm pretty sure is like in the dictionary now. Like, it is... Netflix has become such a cultural change. They're making episodes, Bandersnatch, which we will mention on every intercut from now on, but never fully talk about. They reference themselves as an entity in the future. Right. So I can see the fear that he's getting there because I'm sure, and I feel he should have voiced these things, I'm sure he's seeing a possibility of he got the Minority Report people, right? He still has them available. He still got those props. And they saw a future where it does kind of ruin a part of the theater experience, and we've already kind of seen it. Jokes on him, they're not made for TV movies, because I didn't see Rome on the TV. I saw it on my phone. the way my uncle
the way Christopher Nolan wanted.
Yeah, so that's the point where I do get, because it's true. After I refuse to watch Interstellar unless it goes back in IMAX. Roma, I caught it. This is not the same as when I saw it at TIFF. I get what he's trying to say. Yo, my man said it, like we were just talking about, in completely different words and tone than he should have.
Yeah, I think maybe there's some clumsy phrasing in here, and I think what's sort of been interesting to me is the way that the public has responded, as if this is all like an attack on their favorite thing. You know, like don't touch my Netflix. I love my Netflix.
Worst thing he could have done was to go after something that the internet loved, because now they don't care you're Spielberg. Yo, internet don't care you're Spielberg.
And that's been part of the hilarity of it, is watching other people like, Spielberg's trash anyway. Like, I never liked Schindler's List. You know, like those are the takes that I'm like, are you sure you want to go that far with it? when it comes to me, I think there are valuable points that Spielberg is making in that in order for the theater industry, which is so intertwined with the movie industry, you need the money from ticket sales in order to help boost and fund films. He sees that devaluing movie theaters' place in that
People getting
lineup
lazy and want to just stay home instead. Yeah.
will ultimately, take money out of the pockets of people like him who want to make these movies. It's a lot of the big movies, particularly the blockbusters that Spielberg helped usher in, that really need that boost from a theatrical run in order to stay relevant. And he doesn't want to. Okay. He doesn't want to be forced to make his movies for Netflix. He wants to have the full capability of a big budget and a big release. That being said, you can see the ways in which he's kind of an old man clinging to his norms, to his traditions, and not accepting that the tides are changing in the film industry. And there's all these unintended consequences that he doesn't necessarily seem as cognizant of, that the whole idea of the extended theatrical run is something that's really hard for a lot of documentaries to get it, for a lot of foreign films to get. In fact, a lot of the foreign films couldn't get a theatrical run until January because Roma was taking up so many theaters, the specialty theaters. I think there's a lot of collateral damage that basically relegating streaming to non-Oscardom ultimately would have on some of the interesting movies that the Oscars tries to select. And if we end up in a model that only awards the films that can afford to stay in theaters for 4 weeks, which is one of the terms that I've heard thrown out there, we're in a phase where we might only have like Marvel and DC movies competing for the Oscars or something. I'm taking it a step too far, but there's like an elitist class almost.
So let's talk
to the way
about
that
it.
He's depicting this.
Let's talk about how Spielberg is trash. See,
I never liked Minority Report.
Bro, come on, Jaws, a shark. No. I can't remember how much of this we talked about for the Oscar one, but it's worth refreshing because I recently saw it again with the BAFTA issue. It's a big conversation we're about to have. For those of you who don't know, AMC Theaters, Regal, Cinemark, all your favorites, right? If you want to watch a movie that was nominated for an Oscar, the week before the Oscars, they do the best showcase. They show you all the movies. All 8.
Yeah.
This year, though, it was 7. Because every single theater, AMC, Regal, Cinemark, even Fandango, who I saw saying go out to the theaters, because of course Fandango is correlating with theaters, said go see the Best Picture winners. And it was really weird seeing, as they knew Green Book was going to win, but to fill out the 8th spot, Green Book took 2 when they showed you the little posters, because no theater was showing Roma. Because no theater considered Roma an actual movie. They, quote unquote, I think it was the guy from Regal, maybe the guy from AMC, literally called it, before Spielberg said the phrase, Roma is a made-for-TV movie. Now, as someone at... Cut me off whenever you want to, dude. But at TIFF, you know what I had told you. Roma had an made-for-TV movie, remind you. Roma had an art installation. Roma won Best Cinematography. Roma won Best Foreign Film. Made for TV movie. You know what is made for TV? Doctor Who. Game of Thrones. Ain't those finales get played at a theater?
Right, and Spielberg did say that, quote, I love television, I love the opportunity, some of the greatest writing being done today is for television, some of the best directing, some of the best performances are on television today. So he's clearly not dissing television completely as a medium. I guess he's trying to draw lines in the sand in some way, but it doesn't necessarily make sense for this to be, to say that, it needs to have like a 4-week theatrical run or something to be that line. I think we're talking about the difference between a series and a single piece of work. I mean, I think I think we know the difference between TV and movies when we see it.
Right.
You know?
Well,
I don't think it.
you and I are hipsters. Like, you and I believe, are in that realm of, like, the reviewers on YouTube who just go for stories. You know?
Yeah.
Like, you and I, when we do our top 10s, we're including TV shows and everything else in there. We're including albums and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So I feel like for the new generation, and this gets talked about in music a lot, what is an album? What is a mixtape?
Right. And
what is the difference?
The lines are trickier now. Like, I guess you can say, like, should Bandersnatch be considered a movie, and can that somehow be...
Or is it not? Your girl.
Yeah.
Your girl. What's her name? Tierra whatever.
Tierra Wax album.
Explain it.
Yeah, that she put out a 15-song album with 15-minute-long tracks, and it's a 15-minute piece, but that's
it's
her
minute-long tracks.
Yeah.
To total 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's her album. Is that not considered an album?
Right. Do the songs have to be more than a minute long?
I do think they should, but that's not to take away from her. But you get what I mean? So when it comes to this whole discussion, even if someone were to bring good points, I'm upset to see that it wasn't even Spielberg. For Spielberg to bring mediocre points and then have everybody else on his side, you know, like when you see everybody else on his side and you go, "Oh, you sure you want to stand behind those?" The pettiness from the comments of AMC theaters to say we refuse to play Roma. It's like, bro, like, do you know how there's only 8 movies? Do you really can't be bothered to play it?
They're refusing to play something that would potentially bring them money to play because people want to go see the Best Picture nominees in the theater because they have this. They refuse to cooperate with Netflix.
To see someone headbutt themselves.
To work with Netflix.
To see someone headbutt themselves is the most embarrassing thing in the world. But it gets worse somehow. You heard about the BAFTAs?
No, they're changing the BAFTAs?
No, they're not changing the BAFTAs. I'm actually really proud of the BAFTAs. 2 years ago, I was very critical of the BAFTAs when they came out with the minority rule of saying they wanted to enforce diversity if they saw no diversity, which kind of worried me because I was like, well, there goes the favorite. I mean, they're all white in that movie.
Yeah.
You know, again, going back to the question as well, favorite may not be my favorite, but I still saw the merits in it. Ended up being the rule was a lot more transparent than it was supposed to be. It was just saying, like, if we notice any fishery going on, then we're going to call you out. We're not going to reward you. So it ended up being an okay rule. But they came in this year and they said, nope, Roma is a movie, and Roma wins the big prize.
Right.
Well, I take it their version of AMC's in the UK is Odeon, and if I'm mispronouncing that, or I think it's Cineworld. It's one of the two really big chains, and you'll see if you just Google it. Well, they give BAFTA members free screenings, just like I assume Academy members get free access. They just show their cards, like the guild cards and stuff like that. Well, those got revoked because the guy who runs Cineworld or whatever the place is said, for not playing by the rules and disgracing cinema, they are no longer allowed to go in for their free screenings. The pettiness level is so high here. You start realizing it has nothing to do with the actual merits of what defines a movie.
You call it pettiness, but I want to almost redefine it as as fear. It's fear of the Netflix behemoth. And to an extent, I think it's a merited fear. Netflix is going after monopolizing this industry, and they're not trying to be a movie studio, they're trying to be movies. They want to be everything.
Okay.
And if that's an existential threat to your business, I see being fearful of it, but there's also, like you said, injuring yourself in the process and not taking an opportunity when it's in front of you.
When has segregation ever been the route you want to take?
Yeah.
It makes no sense whatsoever. But like I was saying, it's also dumb because they're slapping themselves in the faces. You're right. They aren't scared of the model that it has to do with it. They're just scared of Netflix themselves, and I think that's really interesting because, man, have you ever seen someone get insulted and it just adds to their ego?
Yeah.
That's all y'all doing for Netflix right now. Netflix isn't going anywhere. You're not going to hurt it in any way, shape, or form. Ooh, boo-hoo, it doesn't get awards. Look at where it's at now before it got any of those awards. But it's getting awards.
This is all good publicity for Netflix.
This is all good publicity, especially when you all look like idiots. Forget the Fathom events I mentioned. Forget the Fathom events. I had seen people complaining about it when I was reading about that article, saying that movies like Netflix, and what he was saying too, was that it takes away from other movies. How? Who directed Roma?
Yeah, one of a previous Oscar winner, one of cinema's great directors right now.
So cinema's great director goes away. That title goes away when you make it for Netflix?
Exactly.
Wait,
Yeah.
it sounds to me like I should be following what the great directors are doing. We ever get that? Guys, I listen to your podcast all the time. Everything you've ever said is great. I'm going to college and studying film because of you guys. But there's one thing I just can't agree with you on. Oh, there's one thing? Maybe there's a different perspective. Maybe, I don't know. Some people would say Alfonso Cuarón is no Spielberg. And I'll say, okay, maybe. Sure, whatever. Martin Scorsese is.
And you also, I mean, look at stuff like Bong Joon-ho making Okja for Netflix. He made that for Netflix because the other studios wouldn't finance it.
Finance
Netflix, Ava DuVernay is a big proponent of Netflix because she's seen filmmakers like her, other filmmakers who are minorities, really supported by the Netflix system, which will greenlight their movies when a lot of other studios won't.
Go more than it. What else did she see? The audience. The distribution.
Yeah, and this is something specific that she talked about. The director of Selma, Ava DuVernay, couldn't show her movie in Selma, Alabama, because they don't have the movie theaters for it, but what they do have, Netflix.
Yes.
The thing that also bothers me, I think the thing that bothers me maybe most about this idea of limiting what movies could be up for Oscars by reducing the eligibility or expanding the eligibility.
Let's get more into this. The eligibility. Now, we talked about this, and most people who I believe watch us here have already seen my video as well of all the, as I quote-unquote, bamboozling in there. What are we meriting against, Zach?
That's the thing,
eligibility to. I thought the eligibility came in making a good movie.
Right, and we talk about some of the movies that we've loved this year. You know, Minding the Gap. Let's talk about that for a second. My second favorite movie of last year, maybe the best documentary of last year. Everybody I know caught that movie on Hulu. Does that make it worse? Does that make it less of a movie? And the idea that the Oscars would not be able to highlight an excellent film like that simply because it didn't meet some sort of theatrical run requirement is sad. I think this is a time where the industry is really making some interesting changes. We're getting a lot of really unique visions from unique people, and to limit what could be nominated for Oscars simply because it didn't get the theatrical run, it seems counterintuitive. I think we should make this a big tent where we can get the best stuff. Who cares if the best stuff is on Netflix if it is the best stuff? Reminder, Roma didn't win, you know? If you really didn't think it was the best thing, you didn't have to vote for it.
Well, let's also
let's just bring in all the best stuff.
100%. And let's talk.
Yeah.
You got one?
I was just gonna say, why would you throw all these amazing films? Why would you throw a Cuarón film? Why would you throw a Scorsese film, a Soderbergh film? Just give it to the Emmys. Why would you delegate them to a different award? I'm going to start caring more about the Emmys. I don't want to care more about the Emmys.
Yo, what about all that dumb stuff y'all do with the movies that do get released in theaters and the campaigns that you run? Oh, that's okay?
Yeah.
Oh, The Martian, a comedy? That's okay?
Yeah, I'm more concerned about fixing stuff like that.
What are y'all talking? Yeah, exactly. For stuff like this? No. Martin Scorsese's making a movie. Hey, do you remember The Talkies?
The Talkies?
Yeah, do you remember when sound was going to be added to movies and people said that was a
you're going back.
Bro, I'm going to the beginning. Do you remember Hieroglyph? No, I'm just kidding. Back then, the talkies were something where the people who had no sound were ready for that because so many people had like the weirdest voices. They just looked great. The Artist is about this. Yeah. People were so adamant to not have that. Really? Right. Not have sound.
To some people, that was
the end of it.
A disgrace to cinema.
A disgrace to cinema. You remember that other disgusting thing they did to movies?
And changing it to color?
Color? That was gross, dude.
Right.
That was sick.
You know, there's
Spielberg
leaps forward in the medium, and I think it's you have to go with the times. You have to be.
That's funny. He says that.
Say that Avatar doesn't count because it uses this motion capture technology. No, they embraced movies like Avatar, and I think
Spielberg made Ready Player One. That was in 3D. 3D.
Yeah. As the mediums evolve, I think the Oscars are going to have to evolve with it. You know, if they want to remain as the... Sorry?
How so? How do you think they should evolve?
I mean, if they want to remain the preeminent award show for this type for cinema, they are going to have to award whatever we consider to be the best cinema. You know, they can't limit it exclusively to things that run for 4 weeks in theaters if the best movies are on Netflix in the future. I think, you know, there's enough people who don't believe what the Oscars say to be valid, but if they're going to just rule out a whole class of movies because they showed up online, I think they're going to lose respect from people who are on the fence already.
A couple of things with that. Let me just say the three, and then I'm curious to know your points of view. The first thing you said was the word cinema. How do you define the word cinema? Because so many define the word cinema as the actual place. So is Netflix cinema? And two, do you think the Oscars will back away? And that would say a lot about, like, wow. Or do they do it and all of a sudden the Oscars out of nowhere become the heroes as we champion them for pushing Netflix?
Yeah, I mean, so to take your second question first, I think it's kind of hard to say because I think right now one thing that people are talking about is how there's kind of two different academies within the academy. There's the older entrenched voter who likes Green Book, who voted for Green Book maybe because it wasn't a Netflix movie, as apparently Steven Spielberg suggested he did.
Is he in the Academy?
Sorry?
Is he in the Academy?
Yeah, of course he is.
Oh, okay. Was he the one who slept with Buzz Aldrin?
Not to my knowledge. I'm losing my train of thought now.
Well, you were saying that there's the older Academy members who voted for Green Book.
There's the two academies. There's the older Academy members, the people who are resistant to Netflix, and there's the newer Academy members who probably embrace Netflix as a place where they get work and they can get their movies made. And I think ultimately, you know, the direction the Academy goes in is going to be another battle over whether or not they have more young voices or older voices, or however you want to break up the demographics, whether or not it's the Moonlight voters or the Green Book voters.
I wish it were just smarter to know that when you say that a movie isn't, even though it's the same thing as a movie, isn't eligible because of where it comes from, yet you're trying to make movies and politicize how it doesn't matter where a person comes from. And of course, I'm not comparing persons to movies, but that same logic is there, and it's scary to see that. I was really surprised to see Sean Baker be one of those. I know my man did the iPhone movie with Tangerine, and I've seen his interviews. My man gets really upset when he gets asked about iPhones. Even though he used an iPhone in the literal last movie he did, but forget that. When he was pushing that. And his thing was, I believe his proposed thing, which was the funniest thing in the world, and I'm glad he works on movies and not actual logistics for marketing.
Not distribution.
Did you hear about that? You read that one, right?
I saw his tweets,
Do you probably know it better by...
Not off the top of my head.
It was something about his proposed plan about if Netflix charged $2 more, so you're not getting charged the, let's say $10, $11, you're getting charged $13, a measly $2 more. I don't get it. But somehow he figured that was the price of a ticket for Netflix to distribute movies in theaters, in their own personal theater.
He was saying something about how a Netflix subscription should also include a subscription to a movie theater, which I don't know.
Or for those particular movies, which logistically makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's none of it that has nothing
Paul
to
Schrader
do with
also had a suggestion out there talking about how the theaters need to team up with different tiered streaming services. I don't know how feasible that is either.
Paul, no one saw First Reformed in theaters. What are you talking about?
It's tough, you know, I don't know where the industry is headed. I just know that more and more interesting stuff is going to be created by the streaming services, and to me it would be a shame if just because they were produced
they get bullied
by
out?
Netflix or by an Amazon, if they respond to me and I feel they're cinematic, if they give me those feelings, then I want them to be in contention for things like the Oscars. Because to me, cinema... To answer that other question,
there you go.
To me, cinema, it's not about the way you watch it. Some of the best cinema that I've ever seen has been stuff I saw on VHS, on a shitty TV, on a DVD that I put into my tiny laptop and watched in the corner of my room when I was 13. You know, in the modern age, cinema is experienced in so many different ways that I think to limit it to it has to be seen in a theater to be cinema is just ignoring a vast amount of creativity. And I don't want to be the person that ignores that, because I think that's where a lot of the interesting stuff is.
I'm not going to say no more. You wrapped it up perfectly.
So let us know your thoughts on Spielberg versus Netflix versus the Oscars in the comments down below, or other things that we should consider for future topics of the week. For now, we're going to move on to our final segment of the week, the new to see, where we break down what's new in theaters to streaming and on VOD.
What's cinema, what's not.
Starting with, in theaters, Captain Marvel, finally out this weekend.
Real movie right there.
Yeah, I believe. Are you going to see this by the time this podcast is out?
Yes, by the time the podcast is out, I should be watching it. Do you have it on your radar?
Yeah, I mean, I like Brie Larson. I like the directors, Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden. So I'm curious about this one. I also, look, I'm a podcast host now. I got to be up on these things. I got to be ready for Infinity War Part 2.
However, Brie Larson said you can't talk about it, though. So I will be...
Also out this weekend, Gloria Bell. This is Sebastian Lelio's remake of his own film.
Really?
Yeah, I
did not know that part.
Language version of Gloria. This one's with Julianne Moore.
That might be sick. Do you think this may build some traction? I know this was at TIFF.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a little bit early in the year to be an Oscar contender, but people love Julianne Moore and people love the original film, so maybe.
I don't know. Snow Stowe Alice. What is it? A woman who goes out and just like parties. That's what it seemed like. That's what the original seemed like, but we'll see.
Yeah. The Sex Trip, I'm Not Here, We Are Boats, and The Kid are other wide releases or limited releases in theaters this weekend. The Kid is actually directed by Vincent D'Onofrio and stars Chris Pratt and Ethan Hawke. Kind of surprising that a movie with Chris Pratt is getting buried in this way, but I guess Chris says something about Chris Pratt.
Chris Pratt been getting buried too, but yeah.
Also in theaters, before it shows up on Netflix, Triple Frontier. It's getting a week-long theatrical release. So if you're in one of the major cities, you probably will get a chance to catch that on the big screen.
That's interesting.
New to streaming March 7th on Netflix, Doubt and the Order. Then on March 8th, Spy Kids 2 and Blue Jasmine, as well as some Netflix originals like Immortals, Juanita, Lady J, Shadow, and Walk, Ride, Rodeo. Then on March 13th, Netflix is debuting Triple Frontier, so that's the new J.C. Chandor film. Or Chandor film. I'm a big fan of J.C. Chandor's work.
Is it a film, though? It sounds like half. Sounds like half a film to me.
It sounds like a TV movie. Yeah, maybe we should be nominated for some Emmys.
Yeah. Because it's only on 1 week.
Future nominee Ben Affleck there. HBO Go on March 9th. Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom and Teen Titans Go to the Movies. Were you a fan of Teen Titans Go to the Movies? There are a lot of people who like this one.
I liked it. Yeah, I did. I liked it when it was in theaters. I'm interested to see now that it's not in theaters and it's at home and it loses all of its complete value and it no longer is a movie. Kind of like when Black Panther was played at the Best Showcase, even though it was streaming on Netflix. If it still holds up. But no, I'm actually, I want to see if the jokes still hold up. Because there was a couple of jokes in there that I had missed the first time around that Elena was telling me about. I want to see if it's just as funny. I have been seeing every episode of High Maintenance started off with that damn Jurassic World or Game of Thrones. Jurassic World or Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So.
March 10th, The Case Against Adnan Syed, the documentary series, has its premiere on HBO Go.
No, tell them what it is. Tell them what it is.
So, this is based on the same case that the Serial podcast was based on in its first season, talking about the Adnan Syed case. I don't know what the perspective of this documentary is.
I don't know either.
So I'm curious to see whether or not, because from the title it sounds like it's laying out the case against Adnan, but maybe that's just the title. Yeah. I don't know. Either way, I'm curious because the case created such a media storm, and there was just so much that happened from the community around it. I wonder how much of that will be in the documentary.
A revolutionized podcast. I'm really excited to see it because I can't wait for the moment where it's supposed to cut to black and we get 10% off Blue Apron if we click them.
On Hulu, March 11th, the party's just beginning. This is Karen Gillan's directorial debut. Kind of came and went last year. Did the film festival circuit.
Yeah. I had no idea she did it. I found that out really late.
Yeah. She won an award at the Philadelphia Film Festival for a breakthrough director or something.
Dope. That'd be cool. I can't wait for her third feature.
On March 13th, Hulu gets Free Solo, your favorite documentary of last year.
The best documentary of last year.
Debatable. And on March 14th, Hulu gets Shoplifters, one of the better foreign films from last year.
Yes, top 3 foreign films of last year. Free Solo, though, that is a real serious conversation there. I agree with Spielberg. That should have been seen in theaters. Spielberg was right. Forget everything I said.
Yeah. New to VOD on March 12th, Fantastic Beasts, The Crimes of Grindelwald, Mortal Engines, London Fields, AI Rising, Madonna and the Breakfast Club, American Football, and Welcome to Acapulco. That's it for what's new to see. Art, what is your pick for the week?
I am picking the show that I had mentioned earlier today. Big Little Liars, True Detective, all that stuff is cool. I know some of you are watching Game of Thrones, but while you're on HBO and you finish that season that you really liked of something, you're like, man, I wish there was something else. High Maintenance. Watch High Maintenance. Yeah. I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts about it. It really is more of a show than what people think. I mentioned this one a little bit ago, Disjointed is. High Maintenance is actually a show that has a lot going on within it. It's literally dissecting... Oh, I remembered now what I said I was going to think of. High Maintenance is a show where you're following these people who end up in this really crazy scenario, and then he shows up, but you saw what led up to it. So as weird as it is, you kind of know what it is.
Yeah.
But if you were to see it, again, if the show didn't do what the show was doing, and instead was following his perspective as he arrived to the crazy things, do you know what I mean? Like, if you were from his perspective of arriving to the stuff that's going on, it would be really weird.
Yeah.
But you already know there's a feminist party going on and why the aura of male presence must be low. So I highly recommend that one.
Yeah, that episode in particular is pretty great. I believe that's the second episode of the second season.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I'm totally with you in recommending High Maintenance. So since you decided to recommend one of my favorites, I'll go ahead and recommend one of your favorites.
Oh, you don't have to.
Free Solo on Hulu, for those of you who haven't checked it out yet. I believe it also played on National Geographic this past weekend.
Really?
So if that's a channel that you get on demand, or maybe it's playing again, I don't know, but it's available to watch. And like you said, it's a real... Even if I liked Mighty the Gap more, I did think Free Solo was amazing. Just to watch this guy climb a mountain climb a cliff without ropes, without nets, without anything to catch him. It's something that might induce a panic attack in the wrong viewer. Mm-hmm. He lives. I'll let you know that, so you're not fearing that this is going to suddenly turn into Grizzly Man or something.
Yeah.
And with that knowledge in mind, it's an absolute stunning movie to watch.
It's still just as crazy. Because the story, it is about him free soloing, but it's about how interesting he is.
Yeah, like when they put him under an MRI and stuff like that. You find out a lot about him.
Yeah,
in ways
him with his girlfriend, and that's really what's dude. I love the movie. Let me give you my two little things over here to plug that, because I wholeheartedly agree. And if you want to say something about High Maintenance, definitely do it as well. My two things are this: do you know that the reason he started free soloing was because, well, if he wanted to climb with ropes, it required him talking to other people, and he didn't want to do that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So he said, I'd rather risk it, no rope.
Right.
Two, dang, why I blinked what it was. I blinked on it. It's gone. It's gone forever. Watch Free Solo, remind me what it is.
Yeah, Free Solo is great.
Yeah, either way, it's really good. It's one of my favorites.
For one reason or for two, it's great. But that's all for this week's show. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter at ZShevich or on Instagram and Letterboxd, also at ZShevich. And check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/multiplexshow. Art, where can people find more from you?
You can find me at the A to Z Show on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, where on Twitter I'll be updating a lot of the stuff that I'm watching by South by Southwest. Same thing that I did for Sundance. I know my Sundance videos are a little bit delayed. We did cover most of the mains here on Intercut, which of course is where you want to be for that. You can also catch me watching Free Solo, where I just remember what I was going to say, and that was that there's a point in the movie where he actually stops. This isn't in the movie, but he stops climbing because Jimmy, the director of he was like filming it told him, "Can you just wait there a little bit as I change the camera lens?" And he goes,
Right.
"No."
Yeah.
But of course, you can always find me here on the Intercut Podcast.
You can listen to every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, on SoundCloud, or your favorite podcatcher, I like Overcast. And then make sure you're subscribed not just to the audio podcast, but to the video feed as well on youtube.com/intercutpod, where you can catch our bright, smiling faces as we break down the latest happenings in entertainment. Find new episodes of Intercut every Thursday, and please leave us a comment, like the video, consider heading over to iTunes to give us a 5-star review. Thanks to those of you who have been. I've been noticing those numbers going up. Really appreciate that. So also like our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter pages. You can find all of them at Intercut Pod, and you'll get updates throughout the week from both me and Art, as well as some of the guests we've had on this program. But for now, thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, remember, it's not cinema unless it's in a movie theater.
Amen.